Hey guys, it's Justin again with another quick video. This is going to be a tutorial video, the start of a new tutorial series. I'm doing this for my sponsor. He didn't ask me to do this, it's just something I saw, thought was a cool idea and wanted to do. Mechawarehouse is hosting a contest called Grunt Destruction. I think the idea is it's part modeling, part photography contest. I'll post the link down below to the actual rules and stuff so you can look into that and see what the whole deal is. But I wanted to make a series to kind of help with that. So if you're interested in weathering models, or if you're interested in photography, at the end of this series I'm going to start a little mini photography series, or maybe one video, I don't know yet. I've also got the photography class live stream up, so if you're interested in not waiting, you can check that out. But the idea is I want to give people some of the different steps that go into weathering a model, and I want to do it in a way that, like, say you don't want to have a lot of rust or something like that. I want to go through each individual step so that if there's one thing that you like but one thing you don't, you can just skip that video. The knowledge is there if you want it, but you don't have to sit through it to get to the part that you want to see. I want to go through as many steps as I'm aware of, or that I know how to do. I don't know, I just want to help out with weathering and stuff like that. So I'm going to put a link down to the rules down below, and if you're interested in picking up a kit to participate in that build-off, you can win a gift card for Mechawarehouse. You can also use our coupon code Justinius10 to save 10% off your entire order at Mechawarehouse. So there's no better time than now to jump in and pick up a kit and join in on the fun. So also, last thing I want to say is thank you guys for sticking with my videos and stuff like that while I'm kind of transitioning and learning, getting comfortable with reviews and unboxings. We're going to start rolling back out with regular content that you guys are used to seeing, so more tutorial style videos and stuff like that, work in progresses. I just wanted to get myself into a nice spot, you know, in a rhythm with that kind of content as well. So we're still going to be doing both. I just kind of put everything else on the back burner while I kind of got comfortable with this. So let's get to it. So this is our first tutorial series in the new format. Hopefully everything should be in full 4K, and hopefully you guys enjoy this. So this is what I'm going to be using to demonstrate most of this process. This is the GM guard type. This model is fantastic. I love it. It was a real blast to put together and work on. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this down a little bit. We're going to get down in here and we're going to start weathering. Okay, so now that everything's broken down, we're going to kind of think about what it is we're going to be doing. So the foundation of any kind of weathering is to make sure, first of all, that the base model itself is clean. So you want to clean up as many nub marks and seam lines and all that stuff that you can. You want to make sure that the actual surface is repaired, because if you try to weather over an unprepared surface, it will show through more often than it won't. So if you're dry brushing and there's a nub mark, you're going to highlight that nub mark. If you forget, if you forget like one or two little spots, that's not a huge deal. You know, that can usually be covered up and not be very consequential. But if you don't remove any of your nub marks and you're like, well, I'm just going to put rust or chipping over top of all that, you're going to have a lot of chipping and rust effects in the same spots across the entire model, and it's just going to look weird. So first things first is, in order to make a nice dirty model, you have to make a nice clean model. So I haven't done the greatest job here, but I've done well enough that I can get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to start with some texture. So I'm going to pop off this little ankle armor. If I can remember how to put it on there. And then I'm going to pop off the foot. And then we're going to take this the the actual foot armor off. Okay, so in my mind, these blue pieces are made of a different material than these white pieces. So in order to kind of convey what I want to with the weathering on these pieces, I'm going to start by applying a texture to these pieces. So in order to add texture to pieces, I'm going to be using some Mr. Cement. We're going to be using it. This you can use Mr. Thin or QuickType or really whatever you want. This I prefer when I'm doing this technique. I like a slow dry so that I can kind of really get things where I want them. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my piece. I'm going to do it one face at a time. Don't worry about covering the entire thing and blasting it through. The next thing you're going to need is a toothbrush with I'd say medium bristles. Nothing, you don't want it to be too soft and you don't want it to be too tough. So somewhere kind of in the middle. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our glue. We're going to just kind of put it across the top of the surface here. Like I said, one face at a time. You don't have to go too crazy. And just let that sit for a second. You can see it's got a nice sheen to it. We're going to take our toothbrush and we're just going to kind of start poking at it at first. And then you can start scraping and moving it around. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It's kind of not the point. So once you've kind of got that effect, there we go. You can see there's a pretty good amount of texture here. And it's already started to dry, which is good. We can go ahead and move on to the next face. So this one is a lot smoother. This one has a strong texture. So we're just going to do it again, and we're going to work our way across the model. There you have it. You can start any way you want. If you want to dab it first, or if you want to go straight in with a toothbrush. Mix it up. There's no reason you have to do it all the same way. Now that looks obviously a little more harsh than what we've previously done. But we'll cover how to fix all this in a second. So let's grab this last face and then I'll go do some more of these parts off camera. That one looks a little bit more chewed up, but that's okay. Because we're gonna fix all this. Alright, so let me make a cut here, and then we'll come back and we'll look at some more pieces. Alright, so once you have gone ahead and added your texture, you've given it a few hours to dry. We're going to go ahead and zoom in on this real quick just so you can see what it looks like. Not super great looking right now. We're going to do something that might seem counterproductive at first. We're going to go ahead and take some 400 grit sandpaper, and we're just going to very, very gently smooth some of this out. And the reason we're doing this is to get rid of some of the larger sections and kind of add a little bit of randomness to it, because the first thing we did was we created a varied surface. Some of this is going to sit above where it once was. Some of it is going to leave little pits and sit below where it was. Now you don't have to sand a lot. You just kind of do a couple light passes. Get rid of all the extra stuff. That's really the main goal here. So once that is where you want it, I like to come in with a higher grit, so we're going to use 800, and we're just going to smooth out just a little more. And this is just going to take away some of the extra roughness. Now, when you're creating a texture like this, scale is pretty important, because at such a small scale, a lot of this detail wouldn't even be this visible. But I do think that in the grand scheme of things, it is better to have an interesting looking surface to weather on top of over a flat, boring one. Now you can absolutely skip this as well. If the texture thing is not something you're going after, by all means, don't do it. But I want to show off as much of this process as I can. So take our toothbrush, we can kind of wipe some of that excess crud away that gets stuck in there. And we're just going to work our way around this and keep finishing this until we're at a level that we like. So again, I want some texture in there, but I don't want like this extreme texture. If I get that to focus. So you can see there's like some smoothness, there's some pitting and stuff going on in there. There's a little bit of that raised texture, but it's overall pretty subtle. And that's kind of what I want to go for here. So we're going to go ahead and finish up the rest of these pieces. We're going to get all these kind of at a similar level so that I can move on to the next one. And we're going to try another type of texturing here in a second, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so once you have finished all of your blue pieces, these are all sanded down and textured and stuff, I'm going to show you a second way to add texture to your models. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use something you're pretty familiar with, some Tamiya putty. We're going to use this lid to a Tupperware container to hold it. Let's go ahead and switch on down to the desk camera, and I'm just going to show you just a second way to apply this putty. Maybe this texture isn't for you. Maybe you want something that's a little bit more pronounced, or something that's going to create a little bit more of a visual effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this putty, I'm going to put it down here just on the thing. You don't need a ton. That's probably, truthfully, for what I have here, way too much, but that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and thin it down using some of this plastic weld. This is a glue, or well, a plastic cement rather. I haven't found a lot of uses for this stuff. It doesn't seem to work the greatest for seam line removal and stuff, in my opinion. I've had minimal success with it, which is weird because I know a lot of people use it. But that just goes to show that something that works for one person might not work for everybody. So we're going to use that to kind of dilute our putty a little bit. We want it nice and thin down. And if you watched my other video, I'll put it up here in the corner, a link to it. I just kind of glazed over this process in that video. So what you do is you get it nice and thin, you get all the excess off your brush. Don't use a new brush, use like an old or a cheap brush for this. Now what's going to happen is the glue is going to help the putty stick to the piece, and the putty is going to create the texture. So I'm going to put this on an alligator clip, and I'm just going to very gently just dab some of this on here. And I'm using a dabbing motion so that it, like, as it hits the surface, this is lacquer based, so it's already starting to dry. It's going to kind of take that partially dried surface and start pulling it up just a little bit, and that is what where your texture is gonna come from, or at least to start. Now, if you want to use a smaller brush, you can do that as well. That'll help kind of create that texture just as well. I think that's a good. Okay, so now that all the texture is done on these pieces, you can kind of see I didn't go super heavy on it. I didn't worry about keeping it even. I wanted it to just kind of have a little bit of randomness to it, you know, just the way it was. So here's what we're looking at. It's not super textured, so you might want to take this on a part-by-part basis. This one's a little bit heavier, so I'm probably going to say in this one we're going to do this with just an 800 grit, and we're going to follow the same kind of method as last time. We're just going to kind of lightly sand it down, get rid of some of the highest ridges and some of the highest points of texture and stuff, and just kind of you know, play it by ear. It doesn't really need to be a certain way. Like I said before, some of this texture, if we were worried about keeping it super in scale, wouldn't even be here. But I want to highlight a little bit of it. I want to create a slightly more interesting surface on some of these flat panels, for some of these more plain parts, because these are what's going to, you know, these are going to be seen, and I want to make sure that they look like they are made of something different than the main armor. So that's pretty much it for surface prep. Remember, surface prep is only the first step in the weathering process. I recommend doing this before you start putting paint on your model, before you start doing anything else. The next video, I think we're going to jump into doing a little bit of like physical damage. We're going to use a couple tools and do some physical, like, battle damage. Nothing too crazy. I don't want to go super heavy on this. Alright guys, so remember, if you're interested in entering the contest or picking up any kits for the contest, be sure to check out my sponsor, Mechawarehouse. You can use my code Justinius10 to save 10% off your whole order. And, you know, be sure to share your work in progresses with us. I'll try and put a link down below to the post about the contest so you guys have more information on it. And thanks for watching, guys. See you at the next one.